Today on the Videomaker podcast, Chris and I talk all about the RED Komodo. You know, I almost said new RED Komodo, but actually it's not new. It's been out for a while, but people have had a hard time getting their hands on one, including us. But we did get our hands on one finally a couple weeks ago. So we talk all about the camera and its strengths and its weaknesses, how much it really costs to have one outside of just the normal, sticker price on there. But yeah, if you're interested in camera technology, this is the episode for you. We kind of geek out about RED and kind of the exclusive club that RED has created amongst shooters. So hopefully you enjoy that. One correction I want to make up front is early in the episode, I mentioned that you can buy one on B&H and it's in stock. Turns out that's not true. It's not in stock. So you can go there and try to buy one, but I think you're going to be put on a waiting list. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we'd love it if you went to your favorite podcast app and hit the subscribe button. It's a big help for podcasts like ours. Also, make sure that you get the podcast delivered directly to your mobile device whenever we release one, which currently is every other week. And if you want to support the show, the best way you can do that is to sign up for our email newsletter. We send out these newsletters 3 times a week. And if you want to sign up, you can go to videomaker.com/newsletter. We'll send you all kinds of tips and tutorials and reviews and buyer's guides and the like straight to your inbox. So with all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, 2 doors down, Chris Monlux.
What's happening?
So Chris, it's Earth Day. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day, yeah.
It's a beautiful day here in Northern California.
It is. It's kind of warm. It's been kind of warm.
Yeah, for sure, and really could use some rain.
Yes. We got a little rain the other day, just enough to ruin my car. I just got it washed, and it was like just enough to have a pollen fall on it, and I was like, oh, sweet. Get to wash it again. This is awesome.
Oh, lame.
But
thanks for washing your car. Thanks for giving us a little bit of rain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're talking about the RED Komodo. And I feel like, Chris, this is a long time coming, right? We heard about this camera a very long time ago.
Yeah, and it has been out and in people's hands for a long time, but it's not been made in such volume that it is everywhere. And of course, it was the pandemic year, so maybe we just haven't gotten to see it everywhere. Right. But yeah, it's if you want to get one right now, I don't know if you're going to be able to get your hands on one or just get on the list or whatnot.
Yeah, that's typically what they do, right? Is they just have a wait list going for these things, and there was a wait list for a long time. And actually, let's see, I'm going to the website now, and I can't click the add to cart button, so maybe you don't get on the list.
Yeah, well, it depends on where. Maybe you go to, a retailer or something, you'll get a little something different. Right. They actually will take a queue, which is a manufacturer, maybe not.
Right. When this camera was announced, it kind of reminded me of the Red Raven. So the Red Raven came out several years ago, and it was basically like, their entry-level cinema camera. And I don't know if we can call it a flop. Can we call that a flop, Chris? I'm not sure how widely it was used.
I don't know how many they made. I think that was the biggest issue, was the manufacturing them, because I as I understand it was very popular and they couldn't keep them in. But I'm not really sure the volume of which RED manufactures cameras, and I think that's part of probably their success as well as probably some of the weaknesses that are there.
Yeah, so the Komodo comes out. It's a 6K cinema camera. Just it's like a little brain, just like all the RED cameras are. They're just a brain, and appropriately priced at $6,000.
Now, this is a little different than other REDs, though, in that you can actually put a battery and a lens on it immediately and use it. Whereas other cameras, you need battery mount and input and outputs. This has all of the super bare necessities, but no one's going to shoot it that way.
Yeah,
It's super cumbersome. It's just a box.
Right. And that's the kind of the beauty of a RED, right? That's kind of why you buy it, in a sense, is to get into this sort of modular ecosystem.
Yeah, though I think it would be, well, I mean, there's a lot of really good third-party things and whatnot, but you'd have to, if you really wanted to make this into like a ENG documentary run and gun type of camera, you'd be spending a lot on outrigging. I think there's probably better choices for that kind of shooting. But on a tripod, I'm pretty impressed with it. And really, when you put it in aspect, with what it's competing with, it's pretty well priced for the feature set. So you're not necessarily paying a premium because it's a RED, yet you get all the cool RED stuff.
Yeah, so maybe we could go through some of the tech specs. We already mentioned it's $6,000 and it's a 6K camera. But as I'm skimming through these things, the thing that jumps out to me here is a Super 35 global shutter, which is super nice.
Global shutters, I think, really key to being that step above camera, right? You're not going to worry about the helicopters, blades bending or fast moving stuff. You're not dealing with any of that stuff.
No
with global
jello
shutter
effects.
Yeah, none of that. So you're not going to have to deal with it at all. Which is really pretty fantastic. Yeah, Super 35. It's interesting these days how many full frame cameras are coming out when really a full frame camera for video production is nice, but it's surely not necessary, or should I say digital cinema?
Yeah. Actually, the video industry seems to be really pushing hard towards full frame, and I don't know. Personally, I don't think that full frame is a deal breaker. But if that's what people like, I guess that's what they like.
Yeah, I think if the Sonys and the Canons that they're making their same cameras but with a smaller sensor, the same alpha, A7S III but on an APS-C sensor, they'd probably sell a lot of those. So, I don't know if the full frame is really where it's all at, but it's definitely important for photography.
Yeah. So let's see. Apart from that, it's got an EF mount.
No, RF mount.
RF.
So it's got the Canon RF mount, and then I shot it mostly with an adapter to EF, RF to EF. But yeah, it's got the RF mount so that you can put SLR lenses on it and adapt it. So depending on whatever you want to go to, and I think the biggest thing to me, because to have a camera that's going to function well through a lot of workflows, ND filters are always kind of how am I going to do it? And if you use Canon's RF to EF with the ND filter built in, now you have the camera now has a native, or at least any lens you mount to it that has an EF lens or mount that it'll have an ND, which is pretty neat. Definitely helped me because if you're shooting outdoors, you're just not going to get those wide open apertures without them.
So if you want to shoot higher frame rates, so higher than 24, I guess, in RED Code RAW, the bad news is it's going to cap out at 50 frames a second.
No, well, it depends on the resolution, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you want 6K, you're going to cap out at 50.
At 50, yeah, and that's a little bit not as tall 6K, which they're calling the 241.
You're right. It's not even full 6K.
But the way at least they're positioning a lot of this, and I'd have to agree, because who's really producing in 6K? 6K is not a deliverable right now, right? And so the nice thing about that is having the extra resolution to crop or to whatever you need to do with that extra resolution. That's kind of the idea there. And the cool thing I thought actually about the sensor and the different resolutions is they don't like pixel bin or do anything like the combination of pixels or having to do that. They just crop the sensor more and more so the resolution's lower. And that's nice if, of course, you're producing in something that that punch-in is helpful, right? So you're going to have one going from 6K to 4K, so you can make your lens a little longer if you're producing in 4K. If you're producing in HD, you can do there's a huge amount of crop. I don't have the exact numbers. I have them at my desk, but it's proportionate to the loss of resolution, and that's really helpful. On the full frame cameras that are out there, most of them will offer a Super 35 crop, but they don't go below that. And it's like, the GH5, GH5S, the BGH1, those are micro four thirds. Those are tiny sensors, so you can really get beautiful imaging out of a small sensor. It would be really cool to be able to have that little crop of that sensor, even if you got a lower resolution. But I think that's also, it's just a little more rare to have this many different options going all the way from 6K to HD.
Right. So even if you wanted to drop down to another codec, though, it looks like if you want to drop to ProRes, you're not getting 6K anyways.
Yeah. I don't know who would shoot this camera in ProRes. I mean, it's probably going to work for some workflows, and that's the way it's going to be. But Red Code RAW is just very efficient. And the cool thing is they used to have all these ratios of compression, 11 to 1, 16 to 1, 5 to 1. And they just made it into 3 or 2-letter acronyms. Here, what I have it on here. Let's see here. They call it.
While you're looking it up, I see that you can buy the Komodo right now from B&H. They've got it in stock.
Oh, awesome. HQ, MQ, and LQ, so high, medium, and low quality. And they separate them. So, if you're doing high quality, it's for VFX works, for extreme detail scenes and stills for motion. MQ is cinema, non-VFX, and high-end TV. And then LQ is TV, online content, documentary interviews, and long takes. And I didn't see a huge difference, just in normal things. Surely, if the eye is in the details, you're going to want to bump those up. But they're also rated for Netflix. So Netflix will take all 3 of them, depending on the type of content you make with them. So you know you're going to be in there, which is kind of cool. Not just the camera itself, but even all of its modes of compression they're willing to accept. But the big thing here is Red Code RAW is 16-bit. Which is just huge. I mean, you're not getting that out of any other camera at that price. I think the most you're getting is 12-bit, which is still nothing to scoff at. 12-bit's still rad, and even 10-bit is fantastic. But 16-bit, you're just going to have a lot more latitude to deal with, really hot highlights with, dark shadows in the same scene and whatnot. So in Red Code RAW, the cool thing too is you're not gonna, the ISO and the white balance are metadata, so you can just change those without degrading the image. I did find, if you change the ISO, it works just the way it would in a camera. So if you're bringing it up, you're going to be introducing noise into the image. So it's instead of seeing that in camera, you're seeing that, in post. But still, I could shoot it all the way up to about 3200 ISO before the noise started to shift, and that's pretty standard for most cinema cameras. Now, say Sony's, they eclipse that by quite a bit, by at least 2 stops, probably going all the way up to 12,800. And the Canon can probably do about the same, maybe 1 stop greater. But when you talk about Blackmagic, which, the Ursa 4.6K Gen 2 is about the same price. Man, you can't shoot that thing over, I'd say 800 ISO, 16 if you're in a pinch. But, Blackmagic in general, their ISO noise floor is pretty low.
So it's 16-bit, and Red is touting that it has 16 plus stops of dynamic range. But in our testing, we didn't find that, right?
Yeah, no, unfortunately. We used the DSC Xyla 21, and we saw 13 plus. If you're counting anything past that, even if you could see it, it's not very usable. If that makes sense, it's just going to be super noisy, no information or detail in it. So I don't ever really like that, and I know that, and it's actually one of the things that they're on their list of highlights is the dynamic range, and I just didn't see it. And I tested it at a couple different ISO ranges, and still didn't get any better performance out of it. So. The thing is 13 stops of dynamic range is still awesome, and I was really impressed with the camera. Really loved the image, I think just it's the whole workflow in general. Is Red has a bunch of LUTs available, and it was one of the first times I've ever shot a camera that I've never shot before, and you're able to preview the LUT in the camera, and I just had that on, and then the LUTs that I had from Red. And once I got into, I was even just in Premiere, I wasn't using Red Cine X or anything, and put on the same LUT, and boom, perfect. Looks just like it did in the viewfinder, and it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, sure, if you're working with the same LUT all the way through, but it was I was really impressed by it. I was like, I mean, I went out not even knowing much about it. Like, it just got it enough working, got enough gear on it so that I could actually run it outside of the room and off AC power and on a battery. And I was just, I like to do that just to be like, okay, what am I going to be frustrated with, once I start shooting something? And the form factor is what's most cumbersome about it. It's just, it's not even, we had it all rigged out. So, because you have this box camera, you need to have a way to hold it. So it's a wooden kit made for the camera, specifically has a handle and rails. I didn't use the rails, so that wasn't really all that necessary for me, but the handle was really helpful. But still, once you mount a monitor on that, depending on where you mount it, but even so, it starts to become kind of clumsy. So, you start to have to really worry about how it's weighted based on the lenses that are on it and like what battery you're using and whatnot. But, the kit was $1,300, and if I would not get this camera without saving budget for rigging it. I think there's there's at least a few brands, and Wooden's just on the I don't know, they're mid-high tier stuff, and so there's going to be probably some more affordable ones, but I kind of feel like you're going to spend a good amount of money. You need to separate some money aside to make sure that the rigging is as quality as the camera, because you don't want to be stuck with a camera that doesn't fit your shooting style and what you're doing. The last thing is going to be having a really nice camera that is just going to be a pain in the butt to use. And that's what I find. I mean, really, it's like when you rig a mirrorless or DSLR with all that stuff, it just starts to become really cumbersome. So,
yeah, I mean, that's kind of par for the course when it comes to any RED camera, right? It's like you can't just look at the price of the brain and say, I guess that's what I'm in for shooting with RED. No, there's all the extra, in addition to the modules that you put on, like you said, there's just like the ergonomic stuff. How are you going to hold it? How are you going to shoulder mount it, if at all, I guess.
Yeah, the cool thing I thought about and I'm sure other brands rigging does this, but they actually just used the battery slots on the back of the camera as mounting points. So it just puts a dummy battery in there, and then I'm running a battery, outside of it. And it was just really nice to be able to have that on there. So it wasn't like I was having to mount it somewhere or whatever else. It ended up making it a lot more, compact, really. We have a small mini V-mount battery that was a real nice fit for it too, not to make it too heavy.
So this, like any RED, the big value comes in really the codec. If you ask me, the actual RED code raw format. REDs are just really flexible because of their modular design generally. But
yeah, and the image looks really nice. Yeah. Their sensor is really nice. They spent a good amount of time. That was the thing I didn't when we reviewed the Raven. It had all that cool RED stuff in it, right? It had all the latitude you need. In fact, it had that dual shooting mode, so you could really get a lot of dynamic range out of it, which is cool. But that, I remember just looking at the image and being like, okay, this is a RED, okay.
Yeah, I remember that when people were complimenting the B-roll of the camera that was shot with a Canon.
Yeah, we shot with the 1DX Mark II, and I remember that camera. It was like on specs alone, there's nothing screaming at me that this is just going to have this special image, but the sensor really performed well, and it just had a real beautiful look. So I think that's kind of the thing that I liked about this camera, and I was hoping to expect, especially from that first, just like I'm just going to take it out and see what happens. That as soon as I brought it in, it was easy to grade, and I was able to get it in. And the cool thing with RED Code Raw in Red Cine X is you can make adjustments in there, and I bring that footage into Premiere, and it's just already taken care of. So that there's that, or you can just bring it straight in, not doing that, and use it in Premiere or in any NLE really, the main ones at least. Just be able to bring it in natively and still use. You don't have to to transcode or anything. Just comes in and plays well. Plays well. I'm using an iMac Pro, and RED and all of their decoding and stuff is really designed around NVIDIA GPUs. So I didn't get to take advantage of being able to play back that stuff as smoothly as it probably can on like a really affordable PC laptop, probably. But that it played better than 4K Canon RAW Lite, which is only 12-bit, and better than HVEC 10-bit out of any of the Lumix cameras or the Sony cameras. So, for what it is, it's doing a lot more and performing just as well as that lower stuff or those lower qualities. It has only one card slot for CFast 2.0, which is good because I have a 512 gig card, which was like 40 minutes or something like that on the high quality. It was definitely a lot of data. But so if you need to do continuous shooting and stuff, not the camera for you, but its form factor is really not going to probably put you in that situation either. Likely it's a camera you're going to use to do takes with,
Yeah, so the big thing with the Komodo that I was curious about was, well, first off, how does the footage look? And I'm happy to hear that the footage was great and better than the Raven, which was, like you said, kind of lackluster.
It wasn't that it looked bad by any means, but it was just like there was nothing special about it. And it's that je ne sais quoi. Sometimes I've shot enough cameras that just every once in a while you'd be like, this sensor is doing something different, and I really like what's coming off it. It's just really different, and usually it's not explained in specs.
Yeah, right. So happy to hear that the Komodo is an upgrade there. But actually, the more interesting thing was what you came back to report about, like the smartphone integration, which is kind of unexpected.
Yeah, honestly, it didn't surprise me just for the sake of, they'd worked on Hydrogen 1, and they were working so much on it. And I remember getting it pitched to me when they first started, just dreaming of the idea when it was. Maybe it was some prototypes and whatnot when they started to tease it that they were going to use it as modular and all this kind of stuff. And as I understand, it did work well with their cameras, but you're going to buy a phone just for that. Well, what they did is they made an iOS and Android app, and the camera has Wi-Fi built into it, so it can either be a Wi-Fi network or it can connect to your Wi-Fi network. So you can either do what's called at hoc mode, which is just connecting directly to your phone. So you can use it and control it that way. And all of the menu features are all there. That's cool. Kind of expect that, right? Previews there, which I could use my phone. I was doing some A-roll, and I was able to use my phone as just a preview monitor to make sure that my everything was good. I didn't have to rig up another one. It was pretty nice, and you can change the quality of that so that it there's no latency with it. And the same thing, you could then live stream from it. Same thing, changing the quality. Or you could do what they call infrastructure mode, which is then just connecting the camera to your Wi-Fi you have, and then your phone through that network is connecting to the phone or to the camera. And you can pull focus. So, if you're using a lens that's compatible with their autofocus, and that's going to work with RF mount lenses, most or a lot of them, and then a good amount of Canon EF lenses. I'm sure that they have some support for other third-party camera lenses that are EF, but they're kind of more hit and miss, as I understand. I'm sure they're getting more and more support as the camera's out there and needing that. But you could pull focus on it, which, like it's not like holding a dial or, actually pulling focus from the side of it. But so that's a little strange, but you can monitor audio, which I thought was really cool. So like the sound guy could be over there with his headphones plugged into his phone and be, controlling, but, it's only got one audio input and it's 1/8 inch, which is just kind of lame to me. I had to use an IK multimedia. What do they call it? The iMic or iRig 2,
yeah.
Or something like that. But the problem is it doesn't have a quarter 20 on it, so I actually had to use a phone mount to squish it to hold it, so I could actually have it connected to the camera. Luckily, it was locked down. It didn't really need to be. It didn't need to be all that stable. But you got to think about that if you're going to have any kind of audio go through it. Now, I think if you're on set and not as likely you're going to need to put a microphone into it, and you're going to have audio being recorded separately anyway. But I said we actually going to have a video up pretty soon. If I think it'd probably be out after this, and the thing that really is the best aspect, I guess, of I'm losing my train of thought, guys. I'm sorry. With the camera in general, I was just super happy with it in the way you interfaced with the phone. But the audio is something that's going to be a drawback for sure.
So whenever you think of RED, at least whenever I think of RED, I always think, okay, well, these are cameras that you make movies with.
Yeah.
In this case, independent movies, right? We're talking about a much more affordable camera. You could probably do well with this for corporate work or commercial work. But the question always remains: would someone get any use out of this? Or would it be worth the money for like weddings, for example, like the everyman's or every person's video project? It's certainly within striking range of a lot of budgets.
Yeah.
But at the same time, working with RED is just different than working with any other, classic camcorder or interchangeable lens camera.
Yeah. I think, I remember what I was talking about. RED kind of sold this as a crash cam. This is like a C camera or whatever. And I think it looked really nice. And because really who we tend to talk to, we're talking mostly to people that are spending less than $10,000 on a camera, likely a lot less than that. That RED workflow, if it's beneficial. So I could see at a wedding, because there's a lot of white, a lot of times they're outdoors, that kind of thing, having more dynamic range and having the flexibility of the 16-bit to be able to do some color on a real high-end wedding. Totally. RED still, I think, as a line item, looks good to charging more in general when it comes to that kind of thing. And I think, do
you think RED has the name recognition to put it as a line item for a wedding videographer?
Maybe. I don't know. It surely will get, I think it tends to give the confidence to the creator of that to charge more. I'm not sure. I think more of saying it was shot in 6K or something like that might be more to the consumer, I guess. But I don't know. If my price range was around this and I do the things I do, the stuff I typically shoot, it's a camera that I would strongly consider. I was really happy with it, how it worked in my workflow. I was using it to shoot, we did a couple different educational videos as well as taking it out and just shooting it around. And so that's that kind of shooting for me, doing B-roll, doing A-roll, in the studio, that kind of shooting, it was fantastic. I was really happy with it. And it was that connectivity that actually I was like, I can set up my shot on, here's something I really liked about that control is I had it on my slider, right? And, sliders, if your camera and everything, especially the one I have, the Rhino 2, if it's too top heavy, the thing's going to shake and whatnot, and you need to press record. And I was able to press record and stop record on the phone, so I didn't instigate any shake when I pressed on it. Okay, you can do that with a remote shutter. A lot of cameras can do that, but I was able to preview it with a different LUT from my phone and try that out. I could change the modes of everything. It was really easy to just get in and change things. Oh, I'm going to try this, and it was it's better laid out than menus that are in camera. I would say I liked the menu in the app better than I liked my favorite in-camera menu, which is Blackmagic. And it's because it's almost the same thing. It's just it's in cell phone form. So maybe that's something Blackmagic's got to do next, is bring that connectivity. And a lot of cameras you can use to like set up a shot, but then once you press start, press record, depending on the resolution and whatnot, it stops showing it to you. So it's good for setting up the shot. That's good. Sending data, there's definitely more of that with like, say, the Sony Xperia Pro, where you're going to be able to use it and 5G together to be able to send your data directly to the cloud without having to go to hard drives. That's cool. That's a neat workflow, but probably more rare for our audience. I think that's a pretty sophisticated workflow that not many would need at this budget level, I think. But I was really blown away by the app just in general, how easy it was to use, how easy it was to connect to, that you can live stream directly from it. So, you could be in the field and be a reporter, although it'd be weird that a reporter was using a RED out in the field. But if they wanted to, they could live stream directly from the camera just using their phone. Or you can then use it when you're connected to the infrastructure, just pull it up on an IP address from anywhere in the world. So if you have someone like your producer that wants to check in on the shoot, you could have it set up and they could just casually look what you're looking at. That's pretty awesome. That means you also then could use it as a webcam, which is, kind of crazy.
If only Red had left it with us, we could actually done that.
Yeah.
We have enough cameras around here where we could have just used it as a webcam.
We could, and I've already done anamorphic webcam, so yeah, might as well do 16-bit RAW.
Zoom kind of screwed us on that, right? Because it just did its normal auto crop or something.
Well, that was on the Zoom meetings, but on just like on our webinars and whatnot, when I'm not using, when I'm doing live streaming, not a video call, it worked great. And it de-squeezed it and everything for us. But and that's just something that's becoming new. Otherwise you would have had to de-squeeze it in program, that they're actually allowing that to happen, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, we don't have any anamorphic EF or RF lenses, so we wouldn't be able to try that anyway.
So if someone had 6K burning a hole in their pocket and they wanted to buy a camera, it's really kind of like this, although it's really not a $6,000 camera, right? You're talking about
6K for 6K. Come on.
You're gonna be in for seven or eight.
Yeah, I would say you're gonna have 25 to 35% over the cost of the camera in the rigging of it, and that would include like a monitor. So if you have any of that stuff already, you're not going to need it as much. And there's going to be some universal things that'll work for it. It does have mounts and stuff. You don't have to get the one that specifically works for it. So you could do it more on the cheap if you so needed to. The handle was really nice for handling it, but if you always have it on sticks and you need rails and that kind of thing, you definitely can do it for a lot less.
So you're looking at, I guess, the Blackmagic 4.6K. Or the FX6, the Sony FX6?
FX6, yeah, really it's probably more like the FX3 just because the FX3 doesn't have ND filters, but it does have XLR inputs and all the rest. But it's just 4K and 10-bit. I guess you can do 12-bit RAW to an Atomos external recorder. It's kind of a hard one there, right? Because the cool thing about the FX3 is it's like, it's already got a handle. It's got the XLR ports on it. Honestly, if it had an ND filter, I would be like, man, this is the camera that I could use for just about anything.
The better comparison might be, it doesn't have the ND filter. At least I don't think it does. The Blackmagic 12K, it's $10,000.
It does have ND filters.
Oh, it does.
It's a Pro. It's a Ursa Pro. So the Ursa Pros have all the buttons on the outside and the ND filters.
Well, maybe that's the one to consider.
Yeah, I mean, that one's. I mean, they're the most similar in the way of the 12K. All you can get is Blackmagic RAW. There's nothing else. Now you can get ProRes with the if you're shooting 4K and whatnot with the Komodo. And that will work for some workflows. Obviously, they included it because there are people out there that need that for the way they're doing it. But honestly, Red Code RAW, if since it works so well in everything, and I can you can preview and it's pretty nice in that way. I don't really think too much of it. But same with Blackmagic RAW, you can use that in Premiere and Final Cut and Resolve just as well. Though you can't take advantage of all the same things. Whereas Red, you could go back into Cine X, do some more changes, and it'll update in Premiere. It's pretty awesome.
So despite all of those tech specs that we can compare to, the one thing you're not getting on any of those things that you're getting on the Komodo is just this Red Code RAW, right? Which is like one of the main reasons anyone goes to Red.
In 16-bit, yeah, just that super amount of color.
Right.
That's going to be pretty amazing in places where lots of color and detail that's going to really come out. But the thing is the FX3 has the same sensor as FS6 and it's also the same sensor as the A7S3. Mm-hmm. And so they're all low light monsters. So, if you're shooting in the dark, but I shot a bunch of product stuff that it was high key on subject matter, but dark all around it otherwise. Mm. And man, it performed great. Things looking just really fantastic, but I was supplying enough light for it to be illuminated, but still in really dark, moody scenes, it looked really fantastic. Hmm.
Well, overall, seems like it's worth the price. The only thing is it's hard to come by. I mentioned earlier in the episode that B&H has it. I was wrong. I actually went to the cart, and it's you can't actually continue. So it does put you on a wait list. So that's the big catch.
Yeah. Well, and it's not going to be beneficial to everybody's workflow. I think that's the big thing about, a lot of cameras at this category that you're talking about, a professional camera, is you start to have to consider how you're using it to the functions that it offers. And I think that starts to, you end up getting a bunch of cameras that are all great. It's just which one fits the production best. Yeah. And also at this level, a lot of times that means a rental. And when you're talking about a rental, who cares if it's $25,000? You're only renting it for a week, right? So it's less than that. So, or whatever, I'm saying. So this is, I think, on the end of the camera that a production team might own, honestly, you had a few of these because you can control multiple ones with the same app. You can have multiple people controlling the same camera. So they actually would work really well together. Them talking about as a crash cam, really, it'd be a pretty rad, GoPro that you're putting on things that, and you can, actually see how it looks while they're out doing stuff. You could mount it on a car and actually preview it just using a phone, no other rigging. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so I guess Teradek might be upset about that, I guess.
Yeah, that's it was interesting because Teradek and Wooden and we use a small HD monitor are owned by Vitek. And when we first talked to them, they're like, "Are you going to be talking about their wireless functions?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's important about this camera." They're like, "Oh, okay." They didn't want to be involved in.
Well, the thing with Teradek is they send high quality, broadcast ready signals.
And it's like, scales.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And so, but I mean, that stuff built in, that's the idea of this camera. I can imagine that if RED is at all smart, they are going to be putting this technology in every camera they do from now on.
Oh, really? I was going to say they should be cutting it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because their whole thing is modularity, right? Bring the price down even more. And sell it as a module, so people who want to get in for even less, who don't need the wireless capabilities, can do so.
I don't know if they're after anybody who wants to get any less. I'm actually surprised that it's this price.
That's a good point. They seem to be targeting this sort of, I'm going to call it mid-level productions. They're pricing their stuff towards the mid-level, and yet they can't keep up with demand. So
they also have models that you can't buy, right? Like the Ranger is only sold to camera houses. So, but it's all rigged out. So it's really interesting. Some of these moves they've made, it seem to be kind of counter to what we know about RED, but I think that they're sly. I think I like it because, Blackmagic blew everybody out of the water by offering great options and stuff between the $2,000 to $5,000 range.
Yeah.
If we actually, so now we have a Sony FX3, which is in that middle range. We're seeing a lot more cameras in there that are from other brands, so we don't have to just go, well, for the money, it's just a great value. It's like, no, there's actually competitive, so it has to be a good camera and good for the money, which luckily I think, other than being terribly, horribly ergonomic and ugly as all get out, Blackmagic cameras still look fantastic and perform quite well.
So, Chris, I feel like this, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I feel like we need to have a contest of some kind to guess the name of the next RED camera.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
so there's a history of some of the more interesting names.
Monstro is the sensor.
Yep.
Gemini, Dragon.
Helium, Weapon.
I think it's going to be one word.
I think they're all 2 syllables, though.
Yeah.
2-syllable word.
Raven.
It has to sound really tough.
Epic.
Yeah.
It's got to be. It's got to sound tough. For sure.
They had Mysterium.
Did they
That's
have
kind
a
of
Mysterium?
That's kind of the outlier.
That's kind of a. Or,
I mean, that's the name of the
even
sensor.
Hydrogen 1 was kind of a weird.
Hydrogen.
It's
that those are kind of
1. No.
those are kind of set apart.
Yeah, but
So-
I think it's honestly like it. I wish that GoPro would have taken like what they learned from their drones and were able to implement whatever was the best part of that into something else already. And I kind of feel like that's what RED did here. Like they had the failure of their phone, but they're like, we have all this R&D and really great stuff. Let's put it in this lower end camera. And I say low end, and it's more high end for our audience and really for most stuff I produce. If I could keep it around, I mean, the video I made, I was you and I were pitching. We were like, 3 reasons to buy, and I'm like, why I would buy the Red Raven or the Red Raven, the Red Komodo. I really dig the camera. I think it's. I'm excited about it because it seems to be some cool pushes forward in technology that is going to give. It's actually going to make the rest of the community have to respond, or the rest of the manufacturers. Whereas RED used to be an island, and it's like, oh yeah, well if you want to spend $25,000 on a camera, whatever, go ahead and buy that RED. You're living in that world. Okay, you're talking about a Venice. Okay, you might as well be talking about, something else unobtainable. But I think that this is a really cool camera. I mean, they have to continue to evangelize to those that are newly creating if they want to continue their high-end brand value. They've always been this higher echelon camera manufacturer that is very coveted just by the brand name. And they've been able to keep that. How do they keep that if they keep on offering things cheaper and cheaper? And I think it's also they're just having some of this technology that they've had for a while, and they're able to put it in a more affordable case. But yeah, of course, can they keep up to demand? That's going to be the big question.
I think it's definitely one of those situations where, because it's hard to get, that makes the appeal all the more enticing.
I saw a really good meme the other day. It was like, oh, let's find you a new significant other. Oh, this person's nice. Oh, they're rich. Oh, this person, they don't want to talk to you. Oh, I want to talk to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like that's, it's like, oh, the unobtainable. That's of course what I want. And of course, that's the nice thing to put on your wall too, because it's that, I can manifest greatness if I just aspire for greatness and that kind of thing, which I think really lives in the ethos of America, American culture, I think, in our society for sure.
So my money is on Demon. That's the next one.
Demon. Yeah. Oh, Demon. Devil.
Yeah.
Devil. The devil would be too. I don't know if they'd be.
The devil is a little too religious, I think, to go after. Demon is close.
Demon.
But it's more mythological.
Or they need to release 2 of them, Demon and Angel.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And that way they can have it's funny when I was getting the guy that gave me the rundown from RED on his cameras. He was calling it ST White. And not Stormtrooper White, and I'm guessing that Star Wars or Disney was like, "Hey, you guys can't be saying that."
Yeah,
and I was a little sad that they sent us the black one. I'm like, "Oh, come on, can't you give us the red or the white one? Like, it's going to look so much neater on our pictures and everything." I know that doesn't really matter, but that's still
matter.
not coveted though.
They charge an extra $1,000 for the white version. It must matter.
It matters it's just like anything. You make the premium package, and the premium people come and buy the premium package.
Exactly. All right, well, we're rambling off into pointless talk, so I guess we'll call it there.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Big thanks to everyone for listening. Hope you found that interesting. Hopefully, if you want to buy this camera, you can find one. They're hard to get right now, but that's just how RED goes. So if you want one, you better put your name on the list somewhere. So for Chris Monlux and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.